Test 1 on Wednesday. If you don't have Lockdown, I sent you guys out a copy of Lockdown Browser. I also apologize, I did not get to send out the study guide till this morning, but it's all the stuff we covered in class. So I emailed you guys the study guide for this exam this morning. Our test on Wednesday, guys, multiple choice, true and false, bonus questions. Bonus questions are based on what we talked about in class. If it's something we've discussed, it's fair game for a bonus question. What's the standing rule if you don't know the bonus question? Make me laugh. I have given points for that. Now, guys, what I also did to hopefully make your lives a little better, instead of having class on Fridays, if I'm going to be traveling to New York, I posted in Chapter 4 a link to an online film about the way Amazon collects data on us as individuals. I'm asking you to watch the film. It's 45 minutes long, and it's very interesting. It was filmed by a German company, so this German news media outlet, and so they're seeing it really from an international perspective. Some of the folks at the interview are some of the folks who actually created some of the technology Amazon relies on. I'm asking you to give me some opinions on Amazon's practices in terms of data collection. I'm asking that you give me a substantial post. You don't have to reply to anybody else. That's not a requirement. I posted several questions for your consideration, and I'm asking you to consider those questions. Any questions about how this week is going to work, guys? We're back to business as usual next week for a week before spring break. So your mid-semester grades are going to be based on whatever assignments we've got in so far. I had a couple late submissions for the first 2 assignments, so I'm still catching up on those, but I expect to be done with that this week. Your midterm grade will be based on all this since we don't have a final project to go on yet. So, to continue. Our next assignment's not going to be due till after you get back from break. I'm not going to go through it in large detail here, but I'm asking you to tell me how you would plan out an e-commerce site for a hypothetical situation. We're going to be talking about things such as a SWOT analysis in this chapter, how we actually start looking at our business capabilities. Who here in any of their classes has ever engaged in a SWOT analysis before? Anybody know, what does the term mean? Yes?
Strength, weakness, opportunity,
So close. Threats. Strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. So we're going to be doing one of those together in class today. See, we're all having a Monday, right? So it's all good. So we'll cover this more in depth next week, so don't sweat it just yet. Guys, what we are going to be talking about are some of the basic concepts for how you start creating an e-commerce presence. If we were creating a presence for our company, which way are we going to go? We're going to create our own website from scratch? Are we going to buy a template? Are we going to focus on mobile-first design? What reasons are we going to put behind our business decisions? We're going to start off, some of the objectives here are really to understand what it takes to get a website up and running, what kind of budget you should have involved, what are some of the potential software options and tools you would have to increase performance. Because this is the one lecture we get together before we do a test, and then a lot of us are going on the road on Friday. We're going to try to keep this more discussion-based today to keep you engaged, because we'll be getting into more of the technical stuff when I get back. Now, we're starting off with some current events because this ties directly into the kinds of things we're talking about. Walmart. You know, we think about big e-commerce giants. Sometimes we forget about how big Walmart really is. This company decided about 2 years ago to really get serious about e-commerce. Amazon was this big, 500-pound gorilla that had been sitting out in the wilderness for a long time, but started getting into Walmart's turf. They fired a couple of warning shots that Walmart didn't ignore. In which ways has Amazon started really invading Walmart's territory? Why is Walmart saying we got to take on Amazon? Other than the fact they're huge. Yes? So we're seeing the ghost stores start to emerge. How else is Amazon starting to invade? Yes? So we're getting in some direct competition there. What other things has Walmart been doing that are starting to get Amazon, or let me rephrase it. What other things has Amazon been doing that's been getting Walmart more concerned? What's a way, for example, that if you want to return goods or services? Yes?
I was going to say, even in some places, they have same-day shipping for the same amount.
Yep.
So, you don't even have to go to the store. So the biggest thing that a brick-and-mortar store has against Amazon is that you can get it that day when you need it.
Exactly correct, yes.
I just think they're partnering with other department stores to have sponsorships
Absolutely correct. So, folks, we're seeing the battle lines are being drawn. And we look at the way that Amazon is engaging in some of the strategy. Walmart is engaging in some of the strategy. It's working out. Their fourth quarter in 2019 was up about 41% from the previous year. And they're anticipating that overall e-commerce growth is going to be about 35% for last year. That's huge, guys. If you're getting into like 5 or 10%, most CEOs are very excited about this. 35%, that's great. Now, Walmart has tried some untraditional ways, non-traditional ways to expand and really build their e-commerce business. They acquired a couple of businesses. One was called Bonobos, which was women's clothing. ModCloth. How many of you have ever heard of ModCloth, by the way? It was a clothing resale chain, for example. Actually, St. Francis alum, Terry Rakovich, who later worked for Casper, helped grow that brand. And also they had a women's plus size brand. None of these are making money yet. And in fact, Walmart itself is still losing money on e-commerce. By all estimates, according to the Wall Street Journal, we're looking at about a $2 billion loss in 2019 to try to get up to speed to go up against Amazon. So, here's my questions for you. Number one, why is Walmart considered to be the underdog? What are some reasons that Amazon has such dominance over such a powerful second player? Yes?
Because Walmart does not have the Walmart doesn't have anything like Amazon Prime.
Yeah, nothing like that. You can still get 2-day shipping on some things, but they don't really have a subscription service like Amazon does, for sure.
Walmart, like with Amazon Prime, not just bonuses for Amazon, but you get Prime Video too. I think the music or no?
Yeah, you can get limited subscription on the music too. So we're talking about value-added services that Walmart just doesn't offer yet. Yes, what else?
Like I remember a couple years ago, their website was just very not user friendly, and then they acquired Jet, and that seemed to make it much better, kind of more similar to Amazon's website.
Joe, you know your history. Yeah, Jet really was a big improvement for Amazon. They're actually getting ready to, for Walmart, I should say. Walmart's getting ready to redesign their site again to try to even be more competitive with Amazon. Are there other things? Are there other reasons? Yes.
Amazon just has a higher variety of items. Walmart only has what they're what they have agreements with to sell stuff, whereas not anyone, but you can get approved to sell through Amazon, so other companies can sell through there.
And Walmart's really got to change their whole model there, because when you think about how Walmart has managed suppliers, I would argue that the lines get fuzzy between Walmart and their companies, who actually works for whom. Where Amazon has some clear distinctions. I don't know if you guys know this or not, but for example, there's been such a problem with fraud with Amazon. Has anybody here ever gotten screwed getting a bad item in terms of something that was a knockoff or a counterfeit? It's a very common thing that happens through Amazon because they're so damn big they can't vet all their suppliers. They actually are counting on suppliers to report other suppliers. So let's say, for example, I am Reebok or I'm Nike or I'm Adidas and I'm making licensed product, and somebody else is making knockoffs. Amazon themselves doesn't really police it. They rely on Nike and Adidas and all these real brands to point out the folks who are contributing to the problem. Walmart has very tight control with their suppliers, and on one hand, that's very good because they've got good industry chains to supply their stores and logistics. But in the online world, could that mean they're also slower as well? Yeah, so they've got some problems to adapt as well. Anything else in terms of an advantage that Amazon has over Walmart at this point in time? Yes?
I was just thinking about this. I didn't know if it's what, but isn't Walmart located in the suburb, not the city? So maybe Amazon is able to deliver their packages to the city easier than Walmart is.
And they've certainly, I think you're right, and they've certainly put the emphasis on targeting those areas. Where Walmart's been all about supply chain management, they still are relying on third parties to deliver their packages. Even in a rural area like this, we're seeing Amazon vans roll around in Altoona, Pennsylvania. Before the next 5 years are out, we'll probably see Amazon drones even in rural areas like this, where Walmart's still relying on FedEx and UPS, and Amazon's building their own distribution company. Now, are there any things that might be in Walmart's favor in this contest? What might be some things Walmart would have up their sleeve? Yes?
You can just go to Walmart
Well, for sure. They're 24/7 at most locations, and everybody, I forget what the population stats are. I will look this up. but the majority of the population in the United States is within 30 minutes of a Walmart. So we're talking about easy drive time. So Walmart's got that going on. What else do they have? Yes?
In a lot of situations, it's more reliable because you can go and actually physically hold something before you purchase it versus with Amazon, you can get a knockoff or something like that.
Yeah, again, you get some sort of vetting before product actually shows up. And they're very serious about that. They fine their suppliers if they're not getting good quality product. Is there anything else that Walmart has?
Walmart does price matching on their own website. So say something's half off on the website, you can go in the store and it's still full price. You can get it for that half off price instead of Amazon's that price, and that's it. So change that.
And it's very institutionalized for Walmart. Although I am going to give you guys a little bit of insider information. If you buy something off of Amazon and within a week find it for a lower price on Amazon, if you text customer service and message them, they'll refund the difference to you. I actually had that happen. I pre-ordered a couple of items. The day after I got them, they were $5 less than when I paid for them. I messaged their customer service and they gave me $10 customer credit. That credit only comes up when you're in the checkout process, so you'll forget it's there if you don't know about it. With Walmart, it's institutionalized. You're absolutely correct. Is there anything else that Walmart has that Amazon wishes it had? Yes.
I saw like Walmart said they were gonna do 1-day shipping, and probably as soon as that comes out, Amazon will do the same. But for now, that'd be like a little advantage they would have.
We're going to see who can bleed more on this one because it's not easy and it's not cheap. I would also say in terms of, although Amazon has great distribution and they've really built and owned and vertically integrated the heck out of themselves, we've got, with Walmart, one of the most powerful logistics systems in the world. So they've got storefronts literally everywhere. So this could be, if we're going for multimodal kind of stuff, the advantage may be with Walmart. There are some rumors that Amazon's in talks to buy a couple of major chains of retailers that are on the edge. One of the ones that's been rumored is Macy's. So it's going to be interesting to see what Amazon's next move is there. But this is what we're talking about in terms of how we're building our online presence. Guys, in terms of before we even put up a graphic or establish a shopping cart, these are things we have to know. What's our mission statement? What is our company about? We've been talking in the last couple of chapters what our companies do, what their value proposition is. We need to know who we're targeting to. For example, if we've got a target audience, we've got some companies like Amazon where the target market is literally everybody. What's the target market for a company like Eastbay? Because it's not everybody. Who's it? Has anybody ever shopped on Eastbay? It's athletes. People who are athletes or athletically minded. So what's our intended market space? If we are Nike, for example, we have a lot of different market spaces. Somebody like BMW has a very limited market space. They're looking after a particular demographic, for example. We're also going to look at our strategy. How are we going to reach that intended audience? How are we going to reach the marketing? For example, if we go after an older audience, paper marketing may still be part of our plan. How are we going to develop our website? What kind of timeline are we on to build this web presence out? How much time do we have? How detailed can we get? What kind of budget do we have to make this happen? We have to think about this as well. How are we going to make money off of this website? How many of you included advertising as part of your revenue model for your business ideas? Anybody? Yeah. So what's the additional complication? That's part of your revenue model in terms of getting started. What's the complication? For sure. And you also have to build those relationships. So if you're trying to get advertising, somehow you got to build that network. Now, you can do things like Google AdWords. For example, you're going to have people who are coming to your site based on the traffic you're already generating. But if you're trying to actually target specific advertisers, you're going to have relationships and make contact with those folks. Whatever your revenue model is, one of the most common things we see these days is that most companies, at least e-commerce companies, from the get-go are not making money. Uber and Lyft, I'll say it repeatedly, are still not profitable. And we looked at Amazon, the biggest brick-and-mortar retailer in the United States, lost over $1 billion last year in e-commerce. You got to bleed on this stuff sometimes a little bit. So hopefully you got a solid business and revenue model. Your business model means how you make a profit. Your revenue model simply means how are you pulling money in. If we start thinking about the folks who we want to pull in, what are their demographics? What are their lifestyle? What are their interests? And how big is your marketplace? These are things you have to think about. For example, if we've got somebody like Uber or Lyft, everybody has to go somewhere. That's a pretty good marketplace to be in. If you're going after a niche market, for example, you might have a smaller total marketplace than some of these other types of applications. And finally, in terms of the demographics you're going after, what kind of prices can they afford? So what we're talking about here is knowing what we're doing, who we're focusing it toward, how much money we have to spend. Some of the things we're going to be doing in the process of this chapter. The first is going to be a SWOT analysis of our companies to know what we're about, what our weaknesses are, where we're going. We're going to be talking about what kind of e-commerce presence do we actually have to have. There are some companies where mobile-first design makes sense. Nobody's booking an Uber off their laptop. We're using phones to do this stuff, so it makes sense to build a mobile-first presence. If you have a different kind of website that may be different, or you may just want to develop for both. If we're starting off with a simple website, if you're paying somebody else to do it, a round figure for a simple, good-looking website is about $5,000 if you're building it from scratch. I'm not talking about using a template, although plenty of people do. What's the problem with businesses, by the way, who make the decision to make their Facebook page their business page? What's the problem? Not everybody has Facebook, that's for sure. Is there another problem? Because that's a big one. What else might be a problem? Very easy for people to throw you off, for example. And the other thing, too, one mistake on Facebook and you get banned from Facebook, and all of a sudden, people who are getting their primary business contacts with Facebook no longer are receiving that information. Even if it's a basic page, I would argue, even in 2020, with the advent of social media, it's still important to have a regular storefront online. So if you're a small startup, you can see the numbers for yourselves. We're making enterprise level changes. If you're Walmart or if you're Amazon, we could be getting into bigger amounts of money. Where we always start off with any kind of business, and e-commerce is no different, is what we refer to as a SWOT analysis. So we start thinking about our strengths. What are we good at? What are things that our company has to offer? What are things that people would be drawn to? What do we do well? Weaknesses. That comes down to what don't we do well? Where are we vulnerable? Where are things that we need to improve? Opportunities means, well, these are things we're not doing yet, but we could be doing with our business. What might they be? And finally, what might some of the threats be? Are there competitors waiting in the wings for us to fall? Are we a first mover? How is this going to work out in the long run? What I would like to do to get us started thinking about this stuff today is to do a SWOT analysis. We're going to use one of your business ideas. We're going to break into, I think 3 groups should be sufficient. We're going to start over with Bryce, and you're going to be number 1. You're 1? I would like the 1s to gather here, 2s in the back, 3s up here, and we're going to go through a SWOT analysis for one of your business ideas. So if one of you would volunteer your idea and talk for a moment, I'll be around to check in on your groups, and then we're going to report out.
We have that the company is unique because there's no other competition in the market that you can rent kitchen appliances from. We have it's multi-dynamic, so not only can you purchase kitchen appliances, but you can also rent them. The market is also pretty good for the business, and the market would probably be low income or transition people from college into work life, as they don't have enough money maybe to purchase the appliance. And then showing my weakness.
Yes.
My weakness is logistics because it can be difficult to track. And then teaching the consumers like what appliances they need. And then if any appliances came back broken or damaged, you have to repair those.
For sure.
And then opportunities, we were thinking like social networking for cooking and like we could do rent a kitchen and like come in and people will have cooking classes and we teach people how to use the different appliances that we'll have on our website. Threats would be like any legal fees, other other competitors, although there's not many competitors in the kitchen appliance. And then people who don't use appliances well, and anybody who like can come into the market. So yeah, that's what I was thinking.
I think it's a really cool idea. In terms of opportunities, I don't know of a company off the top of my head who does something like this. And my wife is a tremendous cook and is buying new things all the time. How many of you are amateur cooks here? By the way, how many people enjoy cooking? And so, for those of you who are into that, she has to spend a lot of money on these appliances, and she does. More than I want to talk about. But in terms of like your opportunities, tell me a little bit more about the idea of the setup kitchens you're doing. That sounds like a really phenomenal idea. Where would you do those?
So we would have different locations. I didn't really think through it, but we have different locations where there would be like a kitchen, and we would be inviting like people in a local town or something to like a community event, and then we would show people different recipes that they can make with our clients.
I think that's the one. If I were doing some exploration on this, I'd see where your potential outlets, how you're going to get people involved. I really think, and this is my opinion, you guys can feel free to agree or disagree. I think social media could be huge for this. Because if you get somebody like, for example, if you're using KitchenAid or if you're using Westinghouse or whatever brand you're using, having them sponsoring your YouTube channel, sponsoring your content, and you're showing a new recipe every time you use one of these devices, you can have a really killer idea. Who are going to be the folks who maybe are not crazy about your idea?
Maybe like the older generation.
For sure.
This new idea with rental service for kitchen appliances.
And some of the appliance manufacturers or the outlets also may be saying, let's get hurt our bottom line if people want to rent this stuff instead of buy it. So in terms of negotiating your relationship with those folks, I think you really need to think about a way to sell that as a win-win too, particularly if you do some kind of corporate sponsorship. I love the idea, though. I think it's super cool. Any input? Yes.
I think it would also hurt really, a lot of people use social media and stuff like apps and all that. So, like young people still live at home with parents, so not really cooking. So I don't have any marketing for it because young people don't really cook.
Yeah, it would have to be people who were transitioning into adulthood, for example, or even like I would think even like younger millennials, people who are in their late 20s, early 30s, who are buying their first homes and things. Could be a good demographic for that too. And actually, again, Gen Xers who like to cook might jump onto this as well. My wife certainly would. Any other input on this one, guys? Any other thoughts? Well, who's next? Which group would like to go next? Very nice summary. Who's next? Please.
I guess we'll start with strengths. So we did my phone case again, which is the Chronos case, which is the phone case that incorporates like storage, Bluetooth file transfer, and a small portable battery in it, and then it has the companion app and then software you can download on your computer to file transfer from your Samsung to Windows or iOS to Windows type of thing. So from what we said, it's unique. There's no other phone case like this. It could be popular. So since there is no other phone case, this would be the only one in the market. Meaning if people liked it, they would have to buy directly, like from us or our phone case. There's not another brand they could go to. It's accessible because it would be available online and then hopefully in stores. But anyone with an internet connection can buy it. It's convenient. You literally just put it on your phone. You don't have to worry about, it's direct connection, so you wouldn't have to worry about, getting it to connect to Bluetooth or Wi-Fi or anything to make things more complicated. It would be more of a luxury case, so it would have a higher quality because the whole point of it is to keep your phone, to create a second way to store things on your phone. To do that and then also make it more of a flash storage so you could access it from your computer. And then communication, not only does our software support communication because we do have the companion app that allows you to transfer to other phones or to other people using the app, but also like it supports a phone, which is a form of communication, so it kind of
we were thinking it would mostly be marketed towards a younger market, which it would help us sell a lot of them, but we're also missing out on a large part of the population. And lastly, we just said Amazon in general because as soon as we started producing something like this, I feel like the bigger companies around the market would all try to duplicate what we're doing. And once that happened, like we just wouldn't have much competitive strength against them.
You guys have some indirect competitors already. For example, if you're using there are dongle cords you can buy to connect a USB, for example, to an iPhone. There are battery cases, but there's nothing I know of that combines all this stuff together. Are there opportunities here as well? Things that you hadn't maybe already delved into?
So for opportunities, we thought just right off the bat, going would be like contracts with businesses, because most bigger businesses provide company phones. So rather than having them have to buy a more expensive phone that has more storage, have them buy one of our cases, which also includes the storage of Bluetooth file transfer, so they can easily transfer things from their phone to their company laptop, and then that the power advantage is always to give a little bit extra juice when you need it. So that could be an easy way to get started, just to contract that, and then maybe to become a partner with another flash storage company like Samsung, Western Digital, SanDisk, etc. That way we'd be able to work with them in a sense, rather than having to just it might make things more affordable for our end, and they might be able to help market. We can put their branding on as well.
And what about threats?
We put down intellectual property because, like you said when you talked to us about it, like we would most likely have to get a patent or like the patent pending logo as soon as we started developing this, so that people couldn't just steal the idea. Phone companies themselves would also probably try to copy kind of the same idea. And then IT development, it's just with us not having a big infrastructure to start off, we probably would struggle to continue to develop our product.
I agree with everything you just said. And have you guys ever heard of something called patent squatting? And what that means is, for example, there are companies who have large development resources. And what they'll do, they'll basically type up a bunch of ideas and say, we think this would be patentable. And they'll go ahead and file patents. And when somebody comes up with a great idea, all of a sudden they find out somebody else has already patented it. If you try to sell it, you might get sued, or you might have to pay them to use their intellectual property. So it's a whole thing. And it's a real challenge to American enterprise now, too, because big companies do it all the time. Amazon does it. Apple does it. Any major manufacturer you can think of does it. By the way, another thing to think about with your phone case, boy, if you had a modularly replaceable battery, something that was easy to swap out once it wore out, you could potentially keep a phone almost forever. Love this idea. Let's go to the Rivet folks in the back. Love the name for this company.
Okay, so the strengths are that right now there's nothing like it. It's pretty individual, and it has a very similar layout to other social medias with like the scrolling feature, the map feature. So it wouldn't really take any like direction. People kind of just download it and know how to use it. It would be good for many age groups and be good for a lot of different specific people because it kind of caters to everybody's individual needs. And the way I see it, I think the market needs something like this. The weaknesses are that it's like a huge project, and I'm just one person, but I'm also too stubborn to hire a bunch of people to do it for me. They would use a lot of high tech, like different forms of tech that I'm just not familiar with. And eventually I'd have to end up paying people to do it, so it would be super, super expensive to launch, and it would probably end up being non-profitable for a while. The opportunities for that, it would be one of a kind, and I think especially now with like how I said myself, whenever I moved to a different city, I think a lot of people are in the same boat where they would need something to kind of get them out there and make friends. So it would be good for that reason. And it also would have the opportunity to eventually sell data whenever it starts gathering a lot of different people.
Mm-hmm.
The threats are that there's other social medias that have events, so like Facebook has events, for example. Lyft also has sponsored events, so that's kind of like I said, we copy them with that aspect. And then other companies might try to copy, and especially if they're bigger than us, they would have the opportunity to. And then one of the biggest threats I think would be that people that would make fake events, and maybe like if they're like a predator, make a fake event to draw people in, like that could be really a bad thing.
Tell me more about that. Like you're talking about actually putting people in harm's way, like people who are doing bad things to people.
Yes, like I would eventually want it would start off with just businesses would be able to create their own events, put like on the app, and that's
Sure.
But if it's just a regular person saying like, oh, I want to host a volleyball tournament, everyone come out, like they could actually be a predator and like the first girl or boy to come in, they could just like take advantage of them. So that could be really bad.
I mean, we've seen that parallel, by the way, with a lot of other services that are out there. Look at Uber and Lyft and how many people have been treated terribly, to say the least. And it's amazing to me that, for example, Lyft and Uber just now are saying, yeah, we're doing background investigations on our drivers. So what might be your approach to that stuff? How do you head that off?
There would have to be some sort of background investigation process, but obviously, like I know the Uber and Lyft one, they were not very like in depth. So,
Yeah.
So I don't know. That's an obstacle for the future, but for
Yeah.
sure there have to be some way to verify that it's. I don't know. That's something that I haven't really thought about.
I think you did a nice job of identifying it, though, and I think you're absolutely correct. I think there's one other thing your business in particular will have as a threat, and that is when we think about right now the big .com companies, whether Uber, Lyft, whoever, even Amazon. Why are they able to continue without being profitable?
They have investors.
Exactly right. Why do they have investors at this point in time? Well, because right now we've been in a bull market since 2009, and people are optimistic. If they're making money back on things like dividends and stocks, and the markets are doing well, venture capital tends to free up. So if we go into a consolidation phase like the 2008 area, these kind of ideas would be very vulnerable to the lack of that kind of influx. You need to find a way to become profitable pretty quickly. I'm not saying in the course of the next 8 weeks in class we're going to teach you how to make a profitable startup internet company, but that's something I would be considering in terms of how could you grow in a way that would be a little more conservative maybe than what we've been seeing in the last 5 or 6 years, because the bull market can't last forever. So is that fair?
Yeah.
Any other feedback, guys, on any of these ideas? They're all really cool ideas. Well, guys, what I'm going to do then is we're going to wrap it for today. For Wednesday, please study. It's a true and false multiple choice test. However, the stuff that's on the study guide, some of those questions that are multiple choice may now be true or false. Some of the answers may be different. Read them carefully. You're going to have a full hour to take that exam. And a reminder, you're not going to be in this room for that exam. It will be in Sullivan 211. It's in the email. I'll resend it. Make sure you guys know that. I'll put a sign on the door. We're going to be filming in this room that day. And Dr. Mark Buckwalter is going to be proctoring the exam for me. So you lock down browser, Sullivan 211. Make sure to study. Yes. 112. It's in the email. It's in the email. I'll send it out one more time to be sure. You are right. It is 112.